This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hi, y'all, and welcome to Horsing Around. Saddle up and get ready to have a darn tootin', galloping good time as we trot out the show that's your ultimate horse source, of course. Find out how to use good old horse sense when it comes to breeding, feeding, training, and explaining. From practical tips on caring for your horse's health to advice on how to buy horse supplies, including bridles, halters, saddles, and more. So get ready to start horsing around with your host, horse expert and award-winning rider, Audrey Pavia. Howdy, Audrey.
Welcome to Horsing Around on PetLifeRadio.com. Thanks for joining us. This week we're going to take a close-up look at a very rare and special breed of horse, the Spanish Mustang. The Spanish Mustang first came to the New World with the Spaniards back in the 1500s, spreading north until they could be found throughout the U.S. These were the horses that became the mounts of Native Americans and the original cow ponies of the West. After nearly dying out in the 1950s, the breed is making a comeback. Over the next half hour, we're going to talk to a breeder of Spanish Mustangs, Susan Catt, to find out where the breed has been, where it is going, and why you might want to consider making your next horse a Spanish Mustang. We'll be right back after these messages.
Why the long face? I reckon Horsing Around will be back in the saddle right after we round up a few words from our sponsors.
It's DesignerPetSweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit DesignerPetSweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. DesignerPetSweaters.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
We know you're chomping at the bit to hear more horsing around. Well, we're back on the trail. So park yourself over yonder and set a spell. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Welcome back to Horsing Around. I'm your host, Audrey Pavia, and today we are going to take a look at the amazing Spanish Mustang. My guest is Spanish Mustang breeder Susan Catt, who owns Selt's Baroque Spanish Mustangs in Arizona. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Hi, how are you?
Good to have you. Tell us a little bit about the incredible history of the Spanish Mustang and how the breed was almost lost.
Oh, boy. I'd like to start with conquistadors coming, wealth, gold, and silver and spices, prestige, spreading the Catholic religion, brought explorers like Soto, Cortez, Columbus, and eventually Father Kino to the New World. Father Kino was a Jesuit missionary, an earlier explorer of northern New Mexico and Arizona. And in 1687, he established missions in that area and spread farming and ranching to the Indian cultures, and using the Spanish conquistador descendants of their horses throughout that region. Those horses eventually escaped or were turned loose and became feral in the area. And then the Apache trade was considered one of the major contributors to spreading the Spanish Mustang throughout the Native American culture, particularly in the Great Plains. The tribes there became famous for their superior horsemanship, and for at least one century, they became known as one of the greatest horse cultures in the world, or known to the world. Also, the Navajo people had one of the nicest, or what was considered one of the purest Spanish Mustang herds up until 1935. And at that time, they had a sleeping sickness epidemic run through the herd, and they lost most of the horses. Some of the descendants are what's now called the bar-in horses. They're highly sought-after ranch horses in Arizona and New Mexico.
That's amazing. And so many people don't know this, that the descendants of that original horse are still here. There aren't too many of them. I believe there's about 3,000 left in the whole world.
That's right.
And so there's a lot of effort going on to preserve them. Tell me about how the breed was, what condition the breed was in when people started trying to save it.
Well, it had declined considerably as a straight colonial Spanish descendant due to the government intervention in their efforts to handicap the Native American populations. They were shooting mass herds, putting draft and remount stock into the herds by shooting the stallions and putting stallions of draft and remount blood into the herds to handicap the horses, handicap the people. They also used some of those descendants of the draft crosses for their remount stock. Between that and ranchers wanting to save the land for the cattle and shooting horses on sight, various companies coming through in the 50s and wiping out herds for basically dog food, the descendants of our early Spanish horses became almost non-existent. Back in the early 1900s, there were a handful of ranchers who recognized the value of these horses and kept them on their ranches. There were a few isolated herds where pioneering had not settled as yet, and there were a few what we consider some of the straightest or purest Spanish Mustang descendants in those herds. They were very far and few between. About mid-1900s, closer to I'd say about 1930 or so, people like Bob Grislon came on the scene, and they would, use these horses in their daily lives. Bob worked as a topographical surveyor for the government, and he used descendants of Spanish Mustangs in his work in the field throughout the Pacific Northwest. Traveling all over, he was hard put to find very, very many, and was able to amass just a handful for that work.
And then he started the Spanish Mustang Registry in an effort to save the breed, is that right?
Yes, he did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, he eventually ended up in Wyoming and on the Cayuse Ranch there in Neshota, Wyoming. And he and Ernest, along with his family members and a few other pioneers, started looking throughout the United States, actually, traveling all over, mostly in the western states, looking for these rare descendants and coming across a handful, and I say that, under 100 horses over a period of his lifetime that he was able to amass together and bring to the Cayuse. In 1957, he and other pioneers gathered together and incorporated the Spanish Mustang Registry in Neshota, Wyoming, for the purpose of preserving and promoting these horses. And like you said, the registration numbers are well up in the 3,000s now, and we're feeling that that effort has been accomplished.
How did you get into the breed?
Well, I've been a horse trainer for most of my life, around 35 years. Worked in a number of different breeds. I've watched most of those breeds decline in terms of soundness. And at one point, I decided that I wanted to seek out a horse that hadn't been overly affected by mankind. Also, when I was a child, I guess I had that dream way back then, because I had written to Bob Grislon and asked him about the Spanish Mustang, and he had written me a handwritten letter, and so there was a bit of a romance there. That between the two, I decided to contact the registry, contacted a number of registries out there, and chose the Spanish Mustang Registry because of the work they were doing to keep their horses clean within their own bloodlines, within the bloodlines of that registry. And the fact that the horses were being ranched and very few private breeders at that time were involved.
And where did you get your first Spanish Mustangs?
I bought my first two Spanish Mustangs from a woman here in Arizona, the Spanish Horse Conservancy. She had bought the sire, or she bought the dam of the stallion that I ended up with, and the southern mare that I ended up with from Kitty Brislon, who is the sister-in-law to Emmett Brislon at the Cayuse Ranch. They live right next door at the Starflower Ranch. And so we ended up with the culmination of her bringing these bloodlines that she got from Kitty together, and we continued to breed them for specific aspects. It was a gated line. It was a very, very Baroque, I want to say Andalusian-looking type in a primitive way. Very elegant horses that she had brought together from Kitty's program, and so we continued it.
Now, how would you say the Spanish Mustang is different from other breeds of horses? I think they're very different, but I'd like to know what you see.
I think comes to mind is their intelligence and their character. I mean, yes, they exude the Spanish characteristics, which, there are a number of breeds that do that. So they're a smaller horse, 13.2 to 15 hands, 15 considered quite large. So, they have a few things like that set them apart right off the bat. Their color, they have every color under the sun. That can set them apart to some degree. But what really sets this horse apart, basically two aspects. One is their character, their intelligence. They have a huge sense of humor. They require you to listen to them as opposed to it being a one-way street of them always listening to you. They require a partnership of you. They're not a horse, they're not a push-button train. Being a trainer, they've taught me more about how to become a partner than any other breed I've ever worked with. The other aspect is their versatility. You can take one horse and you could choose to do 3-day eventing with him. Pony, 3-day eventing, of course, since there would be considered a pony size in that venue. And that same horse, you could go out and run an endurance course with, or you could go on the ranch and work cattle with. They're very cowy. You could run barrels with that same horse. And you could be competitive in all of those venues. Very versatile horse. And at the same time, horse to riding may go out and perform very well on a dressage test today and tomorrow perform in a gated venue.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about the gated part of this breed.
Well, that's my specialty, is breeding the gated Spanish Mustangs. I have a background in a number of gated breeds, including the Peruvian Paso and the Paso Fino, and a few of the American breeds. And the beauty of this breed compared to the other, I'm going to say Spanish colonial descending gated breeds, is that you get the beauty or the class and the comfort of the 4-beat gait that might come with the Paso Fino or the more lateral 4-beat gait of the Peruvian Paso. But what you don't get is the extreme fire. You get a more settled horse that still has brio. It's still probably even smoother in most cases than some of the other breeds. But you're not feeling like you're sitting on a ball of energy or ball of fire while you're riding them. I think that's the biggest thing that sets them apart. Training them is a little difficult because they are multi-gated. There are a few individuals that do only gait or are only pacey, as we would say it, and a few that are only trotty. That not all the horses in this breed are gated, but the large majority are, and they are multi-gated, which means they can go out and walk, trot, and canter a very clean performance in each of those gaits and turn around. If you train them properly to have a separate set of signals and learn how to switch their balance and whatever, they will then go from a walk, say a trot, down to a walk and pick up their gait, go back down to a walk, pick up their canter, come back down to a stop, pick up their gait. And you can ride them alternately that way, but you do need to spend some time working out, keeping the gaits clean and keeping the horses from becoming confused.
And that's unusual to have a horse that will trot and also gait.
In most breeds, yes. In our breed, it's common.
Right.
It's the common denominator of our breed is that they're also gated.
That's really interesting. Another thing about them that I've heard that sets them apart is they're very rugged horses. They have hard hooves. They don't need shoes. They don't need like high concentrated feed. They don't even need alfalfa.
Yes, yeah. That's another area that I feel very strongly in is that we all need to understand that when I say that this horse is an easy keeper and doesn't need to have all the rich feeds, that we do need to provide a balanced diet. It is a horse, regardless of its breed. However, if in that balanced diet we start feeding heavy minerals and vitamins and rich foods, alfalfas, grains, and so on, we can cause sugar imbalances, Cushing's disease, things like that. And that's in any breed, not just this breed. It's just that these horses, for many generations, have survived on scrub. They're an easy keeper. I think one of the benefits to new horse people, or all horse people, that this breed has to offer is that it's economic. You can feed this horse well on almost half the cost of what you would feed the average quarter horse or a horse that weighs 1,000 to 1,500 pounds. I think that's very, very important in our current economy, that people understand that yes, it has to be balanced. The horse has to be healthy, but you can feed them on grass hay as opposed to alfalfa. They're going to stay fat on, just less work, less feed, less money spent. Mm-hmm. Their feet are superb. I have not met a Spanish Mustang that couldn't be ridden barefoot. When I say that, if you're going to ride in where we live in Arizona and the Superstition Rocks, it's volcanic rock, they should have some kind of hoof protection. It can be boots, and it depends on how far and how long you're going to ride them. If you keep your horse in all week and you're going to ride him on the weekends, he'll probably need protection. If you're campaigning your horse and conditioning him for endurance and riding him long distance on a daily basis, his feet are going to be rock hard. Mm-hmm. Most of my horses, I've only had one that had any kind of hoof issues, and it was minor. It was just I can't be honest, it was so minor I can't remember, what it was. All of my horses are ridden foot.
We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Susan about what the Spanish Mustang can do and why they make such great horses in this day and age. We've touched on that a little bit. We're going to get into a little bit more right after we get back.
Why the long face? I reckon Horsing Around will be back in the saddle right after we round up a few words from our sponsors.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
We know you're chomping at the bit to hear more Horsing Around. Well, we're back on the trail. So park yourself over yonder and set a spell. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Welcome back to Horsing Around. I'm your host, Audrey Pavia, and today we're taking a look at the amazing Spanish Mustang. My guest is Spanish Mustang breeder Susan Catt. Susan, tell me what the status is of the breed today. I know there's 3,000 horses, but where are they, and what are people doing with them?
Well, this is an exciting time for us in this breed. We have horses right now out there promoting the breed at the Kentucky Horse Park on exhibition there, and we'll be there, I guess, most of the summer. Possibly, I'm thinking for the whole program. I'm not really sure how long it is. We have a horse who has been accepted as first premium in the Sport Pony Association. That's quite an award, and a horse has to be pretty good to get first premium the first time out. We have horses out there performing at high levels in endurance, 3-day eventing, and some of our breeders have become kind of fairly specific in what they're looking for. They're breeding for better quality, better balance. I can't say better color because we've always been known for our color production in this breed. The common goal throughout all the breeders is quality versus quantity. Quantity is going down, quality is going up, and with it the prices are going up.
Right now it's a pretty affordable horse, considering what an amazing animal it is.
Yeah, the Spanish Mustang has been available, depending on where you buy it from, for as little, let's say, foal, $650, to a full-grown, well-trained, well-promoted horse at maybe $5,000. The middle range, of course, is $1,500 to $2,500. That makes them very affordable for people just wanting to get into a breed or switching over in breeds, new to horse people and families. But we are seeing the prices go up. We're seeing fewer of the horses sold at these lower prices. Mm-hmm. More of the foals are being sold between $15,000 and $2,000. More of the adult horses are being sold between $3,000 and $5,000. It's happening. Mm-hmm. It's slow, but and we don't want this breed to be priced out of the range of the everyday person. But we are very happy to see that people are recognizing that this is a rare breed and that it's a valuable breed. It's a piece of our history, and they're willing to pay just a little bit more for it because of that. We also have, I'm personally very excited about this. I have just sold one of my stallions to a woman in Scotland, and he will be going over there this fall. There's several breeders in the UK and in the EU now, and we're quite proud that people in Europe are buying a piece of our history.
I understand a filly went over there, I guess, almost a year ago to Germany.
Yes, we have a filly that went to Germany. We've had several horses go to England. Via England, we have them going to Ireland and France and Scotland. There's a woman in Australia that's been consistently looking. At some point, she'll probably, if not her, someone from there, because of the promotions, will be taking a horse over. And we're actively promoting this. We're actively supporting these people. These are pioneers over there that are bringing even and we think that's a hard time with a rare breed in our own country. It's our own breed.
Right.
They're taking this breed over there and they're doing wonders with it.
Right. They seem to really appreciate the history, the history that we kind of maybe in a way take for granted. They think it's quite a big deal.
Yeah, they do. They're very excited about basically our Wild West history, our
right.
The Native American aspect and the rancher and the Spanish Mustang, or the descendants of the Spanish Mustangs who ran the cattle drives and handled the longhorn steers, back when, this was really open spaces. It was hard work, shoving these cattle through the terrain, and you had to have a pretty good horse to do that. So those people over there, they look at that and they see the wonder in it. We've kind of taken it for granted, but they see the wonder in it.
Right. I wanted to talk a little bit about the colors in this breed. That's one of the things that I find most interesting. You mentioned a little bit before, but there's Appaloosa coloring in this breed, Pinto. There's all kinds of really interesting duns and gruyas. There's striped legs, and there's all kinds of neat stuff here. And I'm wondering,
almost all of them, yeah.
And what's really interesting to me is the Appaloosa coloring, because having come from that breed originally, we always knew that the Appaloosa markings came from somewhere, but when I learned about the Spanish Mustang, I began to realize this is where it came from.
Yeah, originally it did. It came across with the early conquest horses. Either there were Appaloosas or they were carrying the LP gene, and of course, once it got over here, it started cropping up. Originally you had the clean blankets and the leopard and a few of the varnished roans and, a whole array of the Appies. Now in our breed, due to the preservation efforts of just getting the genetic marbles secure, all the colors have been intermixed. So some of the really classic Appaloosa patterns have been lost, the leopard being the main one. We're in the process. There's a group out there, Spanish Mustang breeders and enthusiasts, who are working diligently to try to bring that pattern back, and we're really proud of those people. And then there's breeders of the dun factor horses, the duns, the gruyas, the red duns, that have firmly established those colors in our breed. And the pintos include the Overo, the Sabino, Frame Overo, Splash Overo. In the Spanish Mustang registry, we only register the Overo colors or the Sabino colors and the pintos. Other registries will include Tobianos. Roans, and of course all the normal colors, bay, gray, and chestnut. Some of my favorites are the roans, the really classic gruya and black and bay roan.
And I know at least it's my feeling, nobody really knows for sure, but it seems that the quarter horse breed has, the original Spanish Mustang in its background somewhere, and that's most likely where the Pinto gene came from, and that's how the Pain horse ended up being the Pain horse.
Yeah, and the same with the Appy. If you follow the history as close as we know it, first off, your Spanish colonial horses, the horses that were brought over here, are descendants in some cases, and probably most cases, of horses that were cattle in Spain, Portugal, or, the various branches out there. These horses have had cow in them, and some of the used for working the bullfighting stock. So these are very brave, cowy horses to start with. Then their descendants were used for ranch and farming to help develop or produce horses for the exploration. Their descendants then eventually became ranch horses and were used for working the Texas Longhorn, a very difficult cattle breed to, handle in the wilderness. They just took the horses they had and they crossed them onto thoroughbred and draft. So the quarter horse itself, I know the quarter horse people, probably don't like to hear it, but the early foundations certainly did have some Spanish Mustang, and the Chickasaw was one of the main, in terms of Spanish Mustang blood, to the early foundations of the quarter horse, some of the quarter horses. So yes, through some of those infusions, the color was, cropping up. King Ranch used Spanish Mustang mares early on in their ranch. So an avenue for the color to crop up.
Right. And as far as the gated aspect, in our American breeds that are gated, for example, the Tennessee Walking Horse, the American Saddlebred, is it the feeling of Spanish Mustang people that those breeds derive their gatedness from the Spanish Mustang?
I think that's a complicated issue because, we do assume that the Spanish Mustang is behind a number of those breeds as well. And that since the Spanish Mustang, the early conquest horses and the horses of that time, of the 1500s, the fad was gated horses. So gated horses are being exported all over the country, or all over the Europe from Spain. So the gated aspect did come with the Spanish stock. However, we have to keep in mind that gait also relies heavily on conformation. And as you put a bunch of marbles together, how those marbles line up when you throw them out onto the floor, how they come together, will define how the mechanism works. So some of gatedness could have come from just the way that it is assumed that the propensity for it came with the Spanish Mustang.
Well, this has been really interesting. I think it's an incredible breed, and people should definitely check them out. What we're going to do in the episode info section of the PetLifeRadio.com website, the Horsing Around page, we're going to have a link there where you can go on and see a whole bunch of websites that have information about what's being done as far as genetic research and breeding programs and all kinds of other stuff regarding the Spanish Mustang, and also learn more about the breed and find out where breeders are around the country and how you can get involved in helping bring this amazing horse back to where it should be on everybody's mind. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Susan, for being my guest this week.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you were able to spend time with us. And if you have any questions or comments out there about horsing around or the Spanish Mustang, please email me at audrey@petliferadio.com. Until next time, happy trails.
Stop what you're doing and start horsing around every week on Pet Life Radio. Horse expert and award-winning writer Audrey will be trotting out great tips on feeding, breeding, and more on everything equestrian. So set a spell and say hey to Audrey and get ready for a darn tootin' galloping good time every week on Horsing Around, on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.